Marketing That Works is the podcast for business owners who want to move their brand forward so that they can bring in more sales and clients. I'm Danielle Harris, and I'm bringing you what I know from more than 12 years of experience in traditional and online marketing. I have created marketing strategies for businesses of all sizes, from multi-million-dollar corporations to early-stage online businesses. Remember, some marketers chase fads. I believe in mastering the fundamentals.
You went into a coaching call with your question ready. You were using the support that you had and expecting to use this coaching call to feel better, to have answers to a business issue that you have, or to feel relieved by the advice that your coach gives you. But you ended up getting off the call feeling overwhelmed and misunderstood. I've heard this from so many business owners, and it usually sends business owners into a spiral of doubting themselves, questioning if they have the right coach, and stopping progress altogether on their business. All because a coaching session spun them out. Today, I want to talk about what you should do as a client when you feel overwhelmed, misunderstood, and confused after leaving a coaching call. I'm going to break down how to advocate for yourself and what empowered next steps you can take so that you can get the most out of your coaching relationship. So, the real key is understanding what exactly happened on this coaching call. Did the coach not understand what you were looking for? Were they giving you suggestions that just didn't match your goals? Were they just completely misunderstanding you? Or did your coach say something that you really weren't trying to hear right then? Maybe they told you that you weren't taking big enough swings in your marketing, or they said that you're not positioning yourself the way that you need to, and you weren't prepared to hear that at all. That wasn't the answer that you were looking for or expecting. Or could it be that your coach gave you feedback or recommended that you do something that you're not ready or willing to do? Maybe they said you need to let go of a particular offer, or maybe they suggested that the niche that you're passionate about isn't the right one and you should think about something else. What is important is that you're clear about what exactly happened on that call, because being clear on that will really set the stage for what you end up doing next. So, let's say you were misunderstood. You explained your situation to the coach, and while they kept saying, "Oh, yeah, I get you, I understand what you're saying," the response that they gave you, it just wasn't right. I remember a time where I got coached, and after explaining the situation, it felt like the coach was going on a tangent that wasn't about my main problem. And I explained again, but the advice was still the same. So I ended up walking away from the coaching experience just feeling like this wasn't it. Like, this wasn't the helpful advice that I wanted or needed. And when that happens, it can feel like you were just given an answer to a problem that's just not yours. Like, that's helpful to someone, but not to me, not right now. So, what do you do in this situation? As always, I want you to have your feelings about the situation. It's valid to feel frustrated when you go to someone for help and you feel like they were not helpful at all. So if you need to feel pissed, do that. If you need to have a WTF moment or maybe walk, depending on how activating it is, go and do that. Then, when you've allowed yourself to feel frustrated by the situation, this is what I want you to do. I want you to think about how what you said prompted your coach's response. This isn't always possible. However, tracing how your coach arrived to that conclusion can help better frame your situation so that you can actually get the help you're looking for. Now, if you can't figure out how they came up with their solution, which is so valid, then I want you to be honest. I want you to approach your coach and tell them, "Yeah, I felt misunderstood. I know that this feels very confrontational and you might not be comfortable being so direct, but you're the client in this situation and your needs weren't met. Your coach believes that you got the answer that you needed, but you clearly think differently, and your coach won't know unless you tell them." Doing that can be as simple as saying, "Hey, I know we coached on blah, blah, blah last time, and you told me to do this, but that didn't really land for me. My focus was really on this part, and I don't think that the coaching that you gave me really spoke to that." And with that, it will be on your coach to either provide a different answer or to show how what they said at first does in fact answer your question with more context and more explanation so you can see how it works. Real coaching and consulting, it can't happen when there's misunderstanding. That's why any trained coach will know that understanding the situation and the outcome desired is at the core basis of finding a solution. So advocate for understanding and work with people who you see are doing the work to seek to understand their clients. Now, I'm not one to easily say, like, oh, they misunderstood you. Go and fire that coach, drop them, move on. I'm not suggesting that be your first step. But if you notice a pattern of not understanding and no desire to really understand you at all, then it may in fact be time for you to find someone new to work with. But that should only be done if you've done your part and brought up the situation. That is your responsibility. While your coach may be able to read your body language, they don't know what's going on in your head. So claim the power that you have as a client and say what you need more of. The next point I want to talk about is when the coach says something that you really weren't ready to hear. Maybe on a call, your coach told you that you weren't taking big enough swings in your marketing or that you're not positioning yourself the way that you really need to. And while you were prepared for an answer, like that really wasn't the one or the direction you were prepared for. You went into the call expecting like a simple ABC solution, and the coach went in a completely different direction. Instead of ABC, you got each Nissan. Like that's Japanese counting. Like where did that come from? You weren't ready and you weren't prepared for it, okay? And that's different from being misunderstood because when you're misunderstood, you're like, no, like these are the crucial facts. When you are in this particular situation where it is something that you weren't ready to hear or a truth that you weren't prepared for, it's more like ooh, okay, I can see how this is true, but I wasn't emotionally prepared to hear that right now or in this situation. And so when you are in that type of situation, you can often feel blindsided. You can feel overwhelmed, and you'll be thinking, that's not what I prepared myself for today. Here's what I mean. If you're familiar with Detroit at all, just on the other side of the Detroit River is Canada. And there are two ways to get there. We've got the Ambassador Bridge that goes over the water, or we have the Detroit Windsor Tunnel that goes underneath the river. Let's say that you were fully prepared to take the tunnel. Like you didn't want to see the water, you just wanted to go straight underneath, straight through and go. But your coach is telling you, like, actually, tunnel's backed up, things are going crazy over there, you need to take the bridge instead. You're getting to the same destination, but now you're looking down at the water and feeling the sway of the bridge, and that's not what you prepared yourself for. Both paths are taking you to Canada, but you weren't emotionally ready for the bridge route, which is, of course, is different from the misunderstanding where they were thinking like, oh, I thought you wanted to go to Chicago, but you were trying to go to Canada. That's a misunderstanding completely. So what do you do when you're in this situation and you're feeling overwhelmed? First, give yourself permission to feel that. Cry, pout, do whatever, have a little attitude for a second, right? And then I want you to use resources like meditation or journaling or therapy to really go deeper. I personally like tapping in breath work and recording voice notes to myself to get clear about what's coming up. The goal is to capture everything that's coming up because of this coaching. Because here's what's happening. They've pointed out a truth that you weren't ready to hear, which means that you're going down a different path of coaching than you were expecting. And so in this situation, you have two choices. Stick with your original tunnel plan or get on board with going on the bridge like they're suggesting. Both choices are valid, but you need to decide which path you're taking. Does it feel true that you need to be taking this bridge? Once you've processed this on your own, go back to your coach with questions. Come in emotionally equipped to say, okay, you coached me on this last time. These are all the things that came up for me. I wasn't initially prepared for you to tell me to take this bridge, but let's talk this through. Why do you see this as the path for me? What are the cons of taking the tunnel instead and just waiting for the construction or whatever else is going on, right? Like really have that back and forth. you should always feel comfortable asking your coach why they're recommending something, especially if you weren't seeing that as an option before. Now, you might realize that, yeah, they're right. I do need to take that bridge. But knowing that it's the right path doesn't make it less overwhelming. It just makes it clear that that's the work that you need to go through and do. When your coach suggests a path that you weren't ready for or prepared for, your job is to decide what path you want to take and then communicate that choice that you want to take. And then communicate that choice that you want to make. Ask as many questions as you need and get all the clarification that you need. But at the end of the day, you are the one that is running this business. You're the business owner and everything stops with you. So your job is to evaluate all the paths that are open to you and decide which way you want to go and gather the support that you need to go down that path. And your coach should be able to help you and guide you no matter which path you decide to take at the end of the day. Now, the third scenario, this is a little bit different. This is when your coach recommends something that you just have a hard no on. Like they tell you to do in-person networking events and you're like, nope, not happening. Or they suggest cold DMing 100 people in a week and you're like, absolutely not doing that. This isn't about being overwhelmed by the truth. It's about a genuine resistance to what they're suggesting. So the key here is figuring out, is this resistance or just a genuine misalignment? So if you've signed up with a networking coach or someone whose whole thing is cold DMing and you're not willing to do those things, then you're misaligned. Like you missed something and it's just not going to work out. You weren't prepared for their core method. But often your resistance might be to the method, but not the goal. Your coach gives you suggestions and you say no to all of them, then you really need to ask yourself, what's the deeper thing that they're trying to get me to do? Usually it's like get in front of more people. And that's good business advice. If you're against getting in front of more people, then you probably just don't want a business. But you need to choose, like, how exactly do I want to get in front of more new people? So let's think about this like exercise. A trainer says, go for a run. And you're like, no, I'm not running. I got bad knees. I'm not doing that. And then they suggest, okay, well, how about go swimming? And you're like, absolutely not. I'm not getting my hair wet. But if they said, you need to move your body for 30 minutes, and that's the core thing, what activity are you willing to do? Misalignment is when you are saying like, oh, I don't want to move my body. Well, then you have a core fundamental misalignment on things and you need to reprocess and recenter on what the core goal is. Same thing goes with business, like that exercise example. I have clients who love networking events. That's their jam. I also have clients who say absolutely no to networking events. So we find other ways to get in front of more people that suit them. The key is first agreeing on the core thing you need to do. If you can't agree on that, like if you fundamentally disagree that you need to get in front of more new people, then you have genuine misalignment. Talk to your coach about what they truly want you to accomplish. If there is a core fundamental disagreement about the problem and what that is, then you either need to get understanding or you need to part ways. Because without that understanding, there is going to be ongoing conflict and you won't trust anything that your coach is saying. And that is a reason to not work together. However, this type of mismatch, like it's typically going to reveal itself very early on. Often you'll see it in the marketing. And so that's when you'll just be like, pass, not the person for me. But this is something that you could also find out when you're on a sales call or when you're in conversation with the coach before actually working together. Understanding if the two of you, you and your coach, have a completely different outlook on what the core problem is, understanding that very early on is going to help make things so much easier because you will be consistently at odds with one another. That's not the type of relationship that you want to have. When you're building your business, you want to be someone who is going to be an active co-collaborator, not someone that's just going to be a yes person. So you do want someone that's going to challenge you and push you to do the things that you really need to do to take your business to the next level. But that's something completely different than a mismatching of goals and priorities, right? You always want to have someone on your side who is going to help you bring your business vision to life because you're the CEO, you're the client, you're the one in charge. Now, as much as we want all of our coaching calls to have us feeling great and empowered, that's not always going to be the case. Like deep coaching is going to challenge you and it's going to push you to be the best business owner and version of yourself possible. But when there is misunderstanding, when you're overwhelmed, when you are asked to go in the direction that you weren't ready for, like that can get in the way of the transformation that you're really looking for. That's why you as a client need to feel safe advocating for yourself. Your coach does want what's best for you, but you need to feel like you're on board with the overall direction that you're going in. So, creating a relationship where you feel safe asking questions, getting clarity, and making your own empowered choices, that's what's important. When I work with my one-on-one clients, I make sure that we have a true understanding of what their goal is. I check in to make sure that the actions that are being taken are still in alignment with the ultimate goal and the ultimate vision. And I'm correct when a client asks me questions. I don't want people who are just going to blindly follow me and do everything that I say. I love working with clients who advocate for themselves, their needs, and their goals, because those are the ones who end up being the clients with the biggest successes and the biggest results because they're clear on what they want and they're also open to being coached in the direction that they need to take for their business to thrive. I remember I suggested a client do more networking, but that didn't feel great for her. And because of the relationship that we created, she felt safe saying, like, that's not what I want to do. And together, we came up with a plan that got her in front of more new people in a way that felt true and authentic for her and still met her goals. And because it felt true to her, she was able to get multiple leads and more opportunities to speak to her ideal clients. Go to the show notes and book a call to work with me to learn how working with me one-on-one is going to help you finally have the type of coaching relationship that helps you feel seen and understood, all so that you can feel empowered to take the steps that you need to book more clients and grow your business. All right, y'all. Until next time, I'll talk to you soon.
If you want more marketing that works right in your inbox, head to the show notes and sign up for the email list. You'll be the first to know how you can work with me on mastering your marketing.